Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today I'm here to let you know everything that I read in the month of June.
It's coffee time.
So I've already mentioned this on my other channel, but I thought I would mention it here as well for the people in the back, the people that still have not noticed. But as I mentioned on my social media, I was going to start a procedure at my orthodontist. Basically, I have gotten Invisalign, which is like braces in a way, and I've been kind of struggling a little bit to getting used to them, dealing with some teeth pain and trying to speak like a normal person again. So I'm hoping that talking a little bit slowly maybe helps in this video while I adjust to this new world order that I have. So today we're here to talk about everything that I read in June. And June was not the best month for me when it comes to reading. I think that it's because the gyms reopened again here in Germany, so I have been trying to slowly get back to my regular routine at the gym, which is also really important for me. So I just need to find that sweet balance, that sweet spot again between working out, working my regular job, and also reading. So at least I read 10 different things. They're mostly like short novellas and things like that, but at least, hey, it's 10 things that I was able to read in the month of June. It's always better than zero. So in this channel, if you're new here, hi, welcome to our coffee times. So we like to rate our books with coffee mugs, and we like to do it from the lowest rating to the highest one. This month, spoiler alert, there is no 5 coffee mug rating, but I still found a couple of books that I really enjoyed. So also, if you're new here, if you love horror and books, please do consider subscribing to the channel and also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more coffee times. Unfortunately, this month also, for some reason, I had quite a few lower ratings. I was doing pretty well until now, and I feel like for one reason or another I just ended up reading a couple of things that were not my cup of tea this month. The first one is called City of the Creeps. This is part of the Rewind or Die series. This is number 28, and these are all horror novellas. They are mostly really short, and this is of course a zombie story. The problem with this book was that, first of all, it was really cliche. It was full of cliches. It was really not an original at all, which, you know, I'm okay with that because I know that a lot of zombie stories are things that we've been told over and over again. However, this book really did not bring anything new to the table, and towards the middle I just felt like the author was trying to incorporate so many different things and characters that it just got really chaotic, because this is a novella, it is short. So unless you're really skillful and you really can make it work introducing so many different things, it is mostly the case, like in this book, that you are causing a lot of confusion and trouble, and it's just not helping with your story. Also, I feel like the characters had no emotions. Like, I didn't feel any kind of connection, no emotions, and that also made it really hard for me to really get invested in the story. Even though this was a short novella and I tend to love those because they're really satisfying, it was just not for me. The next one that I read is another novella from the Rewind or Die series, in this case number 29. And this one, even though I enjoyed it more than City of Creeps, still wasn't 100% for me. We are following Max. She wants to spend the summer at a summer camp called Camp Neverland, and it is supposed to be a really exclusive camp, and she's hoping going there to leave a lot of the things that she doesn't like about her current life behind and have just a nice quiet summer. However, we all know this is not going to be the case, and when Max gets there, even though the girls that are at the camp are really friendly with her and everything seems to be really good, We know, too good to be true, most probably. And after settling in, she realizes that her biggest bully is in the camp. It's a guy called Chuck, and she just cannot comprehend how in hell, how in earth, this guy that is her biggest enemy, bullying her, ended up being in the same camp as her. Now, of course, everything has a reason, everything has an explanation. So Max is really bummed about that because she really wanted this summer to be just about her having a break from her life. So she kind of seeks refuge in her paintings. She starts painting, and that's going to have also an important significance in this story. I think one of the things that I didn't really enjoy so much about this novella was the pacing, but I do like that towards the end the twists are way darker. The story gets really dark, really twisted, and I really enjoy that. But like I said, nothing that really blew me away. Next we have Frightville Volume 1, Don't Let the Doll In by Mike Ford. I think this one is going to be perfect for people that are just looking for a creepy doll story, a spooky middle grade. It is super easy to read and quick, and we're following the story of Mara. She has finally built this beautiful dollhouse, and she's looking for the perfect doll that can live in that dollhouse. And a friend tells her that there is this new store in town where they have really cool figures, so she decides to check it out. And the owner of the store ends up showing her the perfect doll. She falls in love with her. She needs to take her. And the owner also tells her that there is a rhyme that she has to say out loud every night before she goes to bed. But of course Mara forgets about it, and that's gonna have really dark consequences. I really enjoyed this story. It's a nice, dark, twisted middle grade. I mean, it wasn't extremely original, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely gonna move forward with the series. I feel like this is for people that would love to read something like you could compare it to Annabelle from the Conjuring universe. I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for a spooky middle grade, if you're somebody that you cannot take too much like blood and guts and stuff like that, this might be one for you. Then we have Horns by Joe Hill, and the first thing that I'm gonna tell you guys here is if you've never read Joe Hill, this is not the way to start, because this was such a weird book. It is a very trippy story, and it's not gonna be for everybody. In my opinion, if you want to start with Joe Hill, I know it's very chunky, but Nosferatu is such an amazing story. So if you're looking into reading some Joe Hill, wait for Christmas and pick that one up. So Horns is the story of Ig that wakes up one day after a party and realizes that there are some kind of horns growing out of his skull, and he looks at himself in the mirror and he thinks that he might have missed some information from last night. And that is how a story starts. Now, the problem that I have with the story is the way it is edited and told, because we are following different timelines and it gets confusing. There is no real separation sometimes between the past and the present. So we follow Ig in the present, dealing with these new horns that he's growing, but we also see a lot of flashbacks from his past, when he was hanging out with his friends. And those flashbacks have a very important meaning in the story. They're trying to let us know certain things about certain characters, but the way that it was put together, it was very chaotic and confusing, as well as Ig's life was. So I don't know if it was done on purpose, but it's definitely something that is going to confuse a lot of readers. And also the story, like I said, is really trippy. So trippy, like one of the last movies that I have watched last year, Fried Berry. I don't know if you watched it, but like really just like kind of hallucinating stuff. Now, when it comes to the pacing, this is a very slow book. It took me a long time to get through it, a lot more than I expected, but this story had really nice, interesting things, especially concerning the horns, because Ig not only is growing horns, but these horns are giving him the ability to see memories, thoughts, the darkest, deepest secrets of people when he touches them. And it is really interesting to see how he can find out the darkest secrets of humans, people that he knows, people that he doesn't know. And it's really interesting what people hide, because it's always something that I find really mesmerizing when you find out secrets about people that you thought were completely normal. So I do like how his powers evolve through the book, and how those powers are kind of allowing him to solve some mysteries from his past. But I feel like if you're going to read this book, you need to be someone that doesn't mind slow pacing, a really trippy, crazy, weird story, and also timelines that kind of might mix together a little bit too much. Next we have The House on Moon Creek Avenue by E. Reyes, and reasons why I really enjoyed this book is that it is a haunted house story, and you could even compare it a little bit to the Conjuring movies, because we do have some paranormal investigation that's going to happen in the book. So we follow Cindy. She is a single mom raising her daughter, and she's not in the best place financially, and sadly her nana passes away. But the good news that come from those really bad news is that she's inherited the house from her grandma, so she's able to move there with her daughter. She knows it's not the best, safest neighborhood, but at least she doesn't have to go out and live on the streets. So she moves into the house, and soon she realizes that there must be something wrong going on in this place. She hears things change places, and she starts to really fear that the house might be haunted, and so much that she reaches out to people to try to help her fix this problem and get rid of whatever it is living in that house with her. There is a lot of creepy moments in the book. I love the way this book was divided. I love to see some paranormal investigation taking place in the house. That is totally my jam. However, there were a couple of subplots that were introduced and then they were never addressed again, and I kind of would have loved to hear more about that. But anyways, this was such a good book, and I really enjoyed it, so I'm definitely gonna check out more by the author. I've always wanted to try to read something by this author, and this has been my first book, so I'm definitely gonna grab more by him. He's also a self-published author that also can use all the help of the world, so if you've been considering checking him out, consider supporting him and getting his books. Moving on to our next creepy story, we have Creepover Volume 1, Truth or Dare by P.J. Knight. So this is a series again that I'm going to be following up. I've already ordered the next volumes in the series because I love the covers, the style, and I really enjoyed the first volume. It was nothing extremely original, but it was a really nice creepy story about not just horror but also grief, which is something that I love to see combined with horror, and I love that they're bringing something like that for younger readers. So in this story we have a group of girlfriends, a group of girls that decide to make a slumber party, and they are, you know, with their snacks and their makeovers and all of those things, when they decide to play a game of truth or dare. So our main character chooses truth, and she ends up admitting that she's in love with a guy at school called Jake. After she admits her love for this guy, she receives a text message and somebody starts threatening her. So that's where our story takes place, like takes off, and I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's nothing extremely original, but it was a cute, short, spooky read that also had a lot to say about emotions and grief, and I really appreciated that. I love when spooky or horror stories also have a heart. And just the other day on my movie channel I was talking about A Quiet Place 2 and what good sequel that is, and I also read in the month of June a sequel that I thought was pretty strong, and that is Mallory by Josh Malerman. I know not everybody loved this sequel, but I think that the author brought something relatively new to the table. He used the same formula that we got in book 1, but he expanded the world, he gave us new characters, and I think that's exactly the direction that you have to go when you've had such a hit with a book and then you bring a sequel, especially in this case when you bring a sequel out some years after the original book. So in this story, we're still following Mallory and how she is still surviving 10 years after the apocalypse, in which creatures came to Earth that turned people violent, insane, and so people have to protect themselves. They are not able to see these creatures because that's when they go crazy, so that's why they always put a blindfold in their eyes. I feel by now everybody knows the main pitch of this story. But what I really loved about this sequel, apart from Josh Malerman's ability to create these amazing fleshed out characters, is that he brought something new to the table. Not only are we following Mallory, but we are also seeing things more from the perspective of kids that have been raised already in this new world order. So kids that have been developing like better hearing, kids that have another way of confronting the creatures because, you know, they've been raised in this world. They don't really remember much from society before the creatures, and I thought that was really smart to bring that, because these characters of course are going to have other thoughts. They're going to want to make other decisions, and it's going to come, you know, to confrontations, to challenges, and that's exactly what I wanted from a sequel. Even though I have to admit that towards the end it felt a little bit rushed, and I felt like there were a couple of things that were too convenient. I still think that this was a really worthy sequel, and I personally really enjoyed it. Next we have The Hunting of Ashbourne House by Darcy Coates, and this has been my very first Darcy Coates book, and I understand the hype. If you love cozy haunted houses, mysteries, this is an author that you have to check out, and I'm really glad that this was the first book that I checked by her, because I really enjoyed this one. I think it's your perfect mystery hunting story, and also this was a perfect fit for me because our main character Adrienne moves into a house that she has just inherited that belonged to her aunt, and she moves there with her cat. And by the way she tells, you know, about her relationship with her cat, you can totally tell that the author probably has had or has cats herself, and I just could relate so much. My cat lady self was really pleased about these details because they were so truthful. So Adrienne moves into this house without knowing much about her aunt, but she takes the opportunity to start over and start a new life in this new place. When she gets to the house, she starts going through the rooms, kind of investigating, figuring out more about her aunt. She talks to people in town that tell her stories about the house, about her aunt, and of course at some point Adrienne realizes that she is not alone in this big house. I really enjoyed how Darcy Coates really took her time to create all of this atmosphere surrounding the house, and also she started building up the tension more and more, and I felt like the story had such a great pacing. I think it's gonna be great for people that really like to get scared with haunted houses stories, with ghost stories, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So if you were considering picking it up, I would definitely recommend you to check it out. The next one is a book that I feel a lot of people have read this year and really enjoyed, and I'm also one of those people that really enjoyed this one, and that is House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. And this was such a dark story. I would consider this a fantasy horror book, and what I loved about this is that the story was beautiful, but it was also really sad. It was horrifying. It was disgusting at times, and it had so many different elements of fantasy and horror combined. I absolutely loved it, the way that the author merged these genres like it was nothing. In the story we follow three sisters, the Hollow sisters. So they are called Gray, Vivi, and Iris, and when they were kids they disappeared for a period of time. The police couldn't find them, their parents were sick, worried, and the kids just reappeared one day out of the blue with no recollection of what happened to them, of where they were. They have no idea. So they move on with their lives, even though the parents have the feeling that something is a little bit off with their kids. But after disappearing and not knowing what happened to them, it's something that probably you could expect. So the years go by, and when they are older, Gray, the older sister, disappears again and leaves no trace. So her two sisters, Vivi and Iris, start looking for her, and in that journey, in that adventure, they start to make really dark, gruesome discoveries. There are some twists and turns in the story, one darker than the other one. It was unexpected, and I know the pacing of the story is not gonna be for everybody because it does take a little bit of time until you're really completely fully invested with this investigation that the sisters are doing. But I have to say, in my opinion, I really flew through it because I was just loving the way that this book was written. I thought it was beautiful and also heartbreaking. And I cannot tell you too much about this story because I feel like I would have spoiled it for you. But definitely, if you love really dark fantasy combined with a bit of horror, this might be for you. Maybe if you like things like So Kill Girls, even though it's a kind of different story, but maybe you would also enjoy this one. So of course, the book that I enjoyed the most in the month of June was the most disturbing, messed up book with all the trigger warnings, and that is The Cellar by Richard Lehman. I finally got to read this book, and even though it felt a little bit different from other Richard Lehman books that I have read, I absolutely loved how the author combined two different stories, both stories about monsters, and created this really interesting kind of plot. So we're following two stories, like I've mentioned. On the one side, we have a single mother that is running away with her daughter, scared of her ex-husband that has just been released from jail. And the other story follows this house called the Beast House, in which allegedly there is a creature that comes especially at night and, you know, has killed people throughout the years, and there's many legends and stories about things that have happened in this house. So these are the two stories that get combined and intertwined in this book. And I love this because on the one hand, you have the monster that is a creature, and on the other hand, you have the monster that can be human beings, in this case, our main character's ex-husband. And so you're exploring two different things that we could consider monsters. And I don't know, I just really love this book, but it's really hard to read at times. There were many really uncomfortable moments. I'm gonna leave the trigger warnings down below, but please check them out before you go into this book because the trigger warnings are intense in this book. So as you probably expect from a Richard Lehman book, he tends to write really messed up, disturbing stories. But I really enjoyed it because of that reason, because he combined two things that I have the feeling is just telling the two different types of monsters that we can find in the world. Alright, you guys, so this is everything that I managed to read in the month of June. I hope you were able to understand me today because I changed my Invisalign tray yesterday, and when I change for a new one, it tends to get harder again to speak. So I hope that it was okay for you guys. Anyways, let me know down below what is the best book you read in the month of June. Let's talk about what we read in June in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all guys as always in our next coffee time. Bye.